What's up everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be talking about my favorite series of all time. Some of these series have not yet been completed, but I'm including them in this video anyway because I just love them so much and I'm so excited for the next entry to come out. While I do have this as a top 5 list, honestly, a lot of these can be rearranged given the day, so I don't want you to think that this is an objective list by any means. And at the end of the day, these are my opinions. You are welcome to have different opinions. I know plenty of people who very much disagree with me. This is just what I like and the things that I very much enjoy. So without further ado, let's jump into my 5th place spot. My 5th place spot is going to go to the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is all about a girl named Poppy, who is the maiden, a religious figure in this society, which is very reminiscent of a cult. Even though Poppy is a religious figure and meant to symbolize all this purity and such, she actually leads a double life where she has been trained to be combat ready and protect herself if problems should arise or a threat to her life. As the society is coming closer to an event they call the Ascension, things start to go awry and Poppy starts to realize that her society might not be what she originally thought it was. It is a wonderful series, it has an amazing romance, and the characters are very well done. While I do not love Jennifer L. Armentrout's other series, I really think From Blood and Ash is just so well done. I care a lot about the world building above all else, and while the romance is great, that aspect actually is what drew me in, and it's the reason why I've kind of fallen in love with the series. I also think that Poppy is a fairly capable protagonist, and I really like that they didn't make her have to go through a massive training montage to become a badass. That being said, this is a romance and a steamy one at that, so I would be remiss to not talk about it. Hawk and Poppy are just so at odds. It's like, it's not enemies to lovers, but it's kind of like enemies to lovers. They just have that rapport and vibe without truly being enemies. I guess it's more of like a hate to love, hate to friendship to love. It just ends up working really well and their chemistry is undeniable. I know a lot of people hate Hawk. I actually really like him. I think he's just super sarcastic and witty and I can't help but fall for the I must protect you trope. Yeah, it's bad. Either way, it was so great and I am so excited for the next entry. And yeah, From Blood and Ash, who would have guessed it? I think I am about to surprise a lot of people here and possibly piss off a very large majority of people because my 4th place spot goes to Mistborn. And I know I love this series. I talk on my channel all the time about how much I love this series and Brandon Sanderson in general. I mean, hopefully that's a testament to how much I love my top 3, that Mistborn, a series that I rave about constantly, is only rated number 4. While I do have a full series review of Mistborn that I will drop a link to in the description, a brief summary is that Mistborn is about a girl named Vin who is growing up in this society where Ska are a race that is being basically subjected to slavery and horribly discriminated against and killed in mass executions. Vin is a Ska that is a part of a thieving group in Luthadel, the capital, and she kind of gets brought into this crazy plot to overthrow the Lord Ruler. The magic system in this world, it goes down in history as being one of the coolest magic systems of all time. Vin is kind of my least favorite character out of all of them. So I think that's part of the reason why it's not maybe higher on my list, because the ones that are higher on my list, I really do like the protagonist so much. But Vin is kind of like, she's a good way to view the rest of the world. I just don't love her. That being said, the storytelling, the places that it made me cry, the things it made me feel, the magic, the world building, it was amazing. And Hero of Ages, the last book in the trilogy, is absolutely one of the best endings to a series ever, hands down, and I will fight you on that. But yeah, there's like a huge cast of characters that are all really endearing, and I love the action sequences. The pacing tends to be a little bit of a problem, but I mean, It's Mistborn. It's so cool. Everyone loves it. People get tattoos. It's just, if you haven't tried it out, you need to. I hadn't tried it out until this year, and I seriously regret that because I would have loved this growing up. My third place spot goes to Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Wow. I think that that is very much a controversial opinion to put Skyward over Mistborn, but I was thinking about it, trying to figure out which one I wanted to place first, and it was always going to be Skyward. I love it so much. It has not finished yet, but I have read Starsight. My friends are just borrowing it currently, so all I have is the first book right now. Skyward is about a girl named Spensa who is part of a colony of humans that are living on detritus in underground caverns. Her father was a pilot in the military until one day he turned coward in the middle of a battle, and thus Spensa and her family are shunned from this society and treated just awfully. I think the biggest thing about this book is I love Spensa. I love Spensa so much, and one of my friends adamantly disagrees with me on this, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the few things that we strongly disagree on because she finds Spensa annoying. I do not at all. I find her incredibly relatable, and I just see some of myself in her when I was an angry teen and when I felt like the world was being unfair to me. I related to her so much. Also, these side characters in this book are amazing, including one that I cannot talk about because that is probably one of the biggest spoilers for halfway through the book. But yeah, I absolutely love these characters. They're hilarious, and going past Skyward, Starsight basically takes a 180 from what I expected to happen, and it still ends up being amazing, and I loved it. I just think that this sci-fi world is so interesting, and maybe it has a bunch of the predictability and tropes of sci-fi that we've seen before, but the way it's done is just so beautiful and fun, and it's fast-paced, and the star fighting is amazing, and I found myself ripping through this book in 2 days' time, just unable to put it down, and I think that's honestly what ended up edging it over Mistborn for me, at least. If you have not read Skyward, but you do like Brandon Sanderson, or you do like YA or sci-fi, read Skyward. It is actually one of my biggest books to recommend to people. I think it's easy to be beloved by all, and it should get more of a chance than it does. Also, I would love to talk about Skyward more and have people actually know what I'm talking about. It's really good, guys. I have friends who only like adult fantasy and adult sci-fi, and they absolutely loved this book, despite it being YA, so it does not hold on to those tropes. And it's so good. You really need to give it a shot. If you like YA, it's perfect. If you don't like YA and you like adult fantasy, I find that this might be an exception for you. So please, just everyone read Skyward. That is the moral of this video. All right, guys, we are at the top 2, and my second place, very controversial yet also universally beloved, is gonna be ACOTAR, or A Court of Thorns and Roses. I absolutely adore this series. I know it's cliche at times, I know that there are tropes that people hate, but man, it's so good, and the romance is good, and the whole world is not really well built, and there's not really a plot, but man, the romance is good, and the characters are amazing, and I love the side characters. I can't stop raving about this book. I mean, to prove it to you, I literally, this is the pillow that's on my recording chair. Yeah. I love this series. I love this series so much. I also did a full book review for A Court of Silver Flames that has spoiler-free and spoiler-filled versions, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description as well. A Court of Thorns and Roses, or ACOTAR for short, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling involving a fae world called Prythian. It sounds really strange, and especially if you are not used to fae being a big part of stories right now, then you're probably thinking of tiny little fairies. No, these are full-grown people. I like to equate it more to like Irish mythology, and just, you know, like the UK in general, like their view of fae, which are like full-grown people. They're kind of more akin to elves if you're used to more classic fantasy, but with added powers, and a lot of them have like societies and regal royal courts and such. So that's gonna be kind of the difference there. But it is actually extremely good. If you want a good fantasy romance, definitely pick this up. It originally got called YA. It is not YA. It is now being rebranded as adult fantasy because there are things that happen in the second book that no one can label as YA. It's just not. So that's a good idea. I love this series. I don't think there's anything I can say or add to what other people have already said, but it's just amazing. And honestly, I had a really hard time debating whether this would be my second place or my first, but again, I love the first one so much that I needed to edge it up. This book series is also split into 2 separate trilogies with a little novella in between. So the original ACOTAR series is A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and then A Court of Rings and Ruin. And then there is a novella, and then we are now starting the new trilogy in the same world, which is A Court of Silver Flames, which focuses on a different protagonist. I ended up just loving it, so I'm super excited to see where that trilogy goes. Alright, so for my first place spot, I actually don't even have a physical book to show you because I read them all on Kindle simply because I was reading these and I would finish at like midnight and I couldn't wait another second to pick up the next book. I love this series. I am planning on naming one of my children after the main protagonist of this series. I absolutely love all of these side characters and the world and the plot, and a lot of people hate it, but I absolutely love it. This is, of course, the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. Yes, I put 2 Sarah J. Maas picks as my top 2. Thinking on it, I only put 3 authors in total for my top 5. Oops. Either way, Throne of Glass is so good, and I honestly think it gets a bad rap because Sarah J. Maas wrote the first book when she was like 16 or something, so the first book's not that good. I actually don't think that it starts picking up until the 3rd or the 4th book, but once it picks up and once it starts going, you cannot put it down, and it's amazing and it ties everything together, and she put so much thought into the world building and the entire cast of characters because you're following like 12 points of view, if not more, and they are all distinct and have their own kind of thoughts and views of the world and witty remarks, and they're just such good characters. And I love the final entry, Kingdom of Ash. I cried so hard reading that book, and my husband can attest I was a sobbing mess on the floor by the time it ended. I'm planning on getting the Juniper Books full series editions for my shelves because I just can't imagine never lending out this series to anyone physically or never having it to reference when people ask me what my favorite series is. I guess I should tell you guys what it's actually about. I realize I've just been raving this whole time instead of actually saying what the story is. Throne of Glass follows this woman named Selena who is being taken out of what is essentially a death camp to compete in this competition to become the king's assassin. She had been an assassin her whole life before she ended up getting caught, and so she is happy for any opportunity to get out of this camp where she has been just emaciated and broken down fully. I love Aelin, I love Lysandra, I love Aiden, I love Dorian so much. I just love these characters and they're so good, and Sarah J. Maas does an amazing job at writing side characters, and that's something really important to me. And unlike ACOTAR, where the plot is kind of second fiddle to the romance, this book does so well at everything. The romances, the plot, the characters, I care about all of it. I will say again, you really need to get through about 2 or 3 books before you actually start getting invested and it starts getting really good. If you know The Wheel of Time, it's similar to The Slog, but just put it at the beginning, where if you get through it, it ends up being really good. And I just can't recommend this more. If you like epic fantasy but are scared and intimidated by it and don't want to rush right into it, pick up the series because it really is an introduction into epic fantasy. It has political upheaval, it has battles and wars, and it's so absolutely incredible. I just love it so much, and it means so much to me. I'm actually planning on getting a tattoo of Aelin on my arm with the quote, "You do not yield," underneath it. I have thought about getting these swords on my arms before as tattoos. I love this series. It means so much to me, and there's no way it would not be in my #1 spot. But hey, I'm reading a bunch of new series now. Maybe it'll get dethroned. Dethroned? Overthrown. Maybe it'll get overthrown. Either way, I can't say enough about it. Anyways, guys, that is the end of this video. If these are any of your guys' favorite series, definitely let me know. I am so excited to talk about these things with people because I don't have that many people who have read these in real life to talk to. Or if you guys have a series that you love so much more than any of these, drop it in the comments. I would love to get some recommendations on amazing fantasy and sci-fi series that would absolutely blow my mind. All right, that's it. I will see you guys in the next video and have a wonderful week until then.